Yeah, this is actually a new terrain
Oh,
for
okay.
me.
Okay.
You had your practice yesterday.
Yeah, I
I didn't, but
did.
this is a roundtable discussion. So
Oh,
it's,
right, right.
yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah, so
right.
I didn't.
Well, I thought you were going to mention your name and then we'd move on to, basic part of the introductions and all those, as usual, as always, right?
Yeah, but it's spread out today. The discussions are buoyant. They're, we just keep bringing them out as
That's
it comes.
right.
But we are going to touch on quite a few topics that have been making headlines and, recurrently have been making headlines. We're going to be talking about the Electoral Act 2022, religious fanaticism and intolerance.
Mm,
And then we're going to take a trip down to Ekiti State for the
that's
recaps of the
right.
Guber elections and also discuss some of the problems regarding attacks on religious gatherings.
Mm,
This has been something that has taken place for quite some time. I mean, far back as 2012, it's been a running battle. So,
mm.
yeah, we're going to talk about all this, but we're not alone
Right.
today. How do we do this? Is this like, I think
Well,
we're the hosts and he's our
yeah.
guest, or visitor. Right, I think
uh,
that's how we should put it.
okay. One of us who, of course, usually get to hear his voice on Fridays on Panorama, that is. Uzo, what's going on?
My brother, it's good to be here. Delighted to be here.
Does it feel odd?
I haven't done this in a while. The last time we had something similar to this was way back last year when
Yeah,
we had a
December last
roundtable
year.
talking,
That's right.
on Saturday. So it feels a bit different, but
Mm,
it's indeed good to be here to, of course, talk about the issues, like Dara said, that has stranded the Nigerian polity in the past 6 months. So
mm.
yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go.
That's right. Okay, so for those who would love to join us via way of socials, we're live on Facebook, so you could also head there to catch a glimpse of every beat of the conversation. You can drop us comments as the conversation progresses. We'd read them out when the time is right to do that. You
Right.
could also make use of Twitter to send us your thoughts as we progress with the conversation as well. Also, WhatsApp 0817 555 1067. That is 0817 555 1067. Okay, so there has pretty much laid the background to the things we'll be covering today. I mean, for those who joined us yesterday, I'm sure you enjoyed it. And so here's the final lap to it. We'll just get straight into it right now.
Religion is a way of life. Insecurity of the world, which is an embodiment of a belief in a particular entity, certain peculiarities and practices, and a moral compass to put in place to guide a person through life. While the merits of practicing religion are quite numerous I beg your pardon. While the merits of practicing religion are quite numerous, for every positive, there is a negative. In this case, extremism. Religious fanaticism has found its way into present time and has been the source of a great many hardship, attacks, and even wars. Many argue that it has become a tool used to control, oppress, and hoodwink the less enlightened, and this puts them in a state of mind enslavement to do the bidding of their betters.
The news agency of Nigeria, NAN, reports that the Apex Court on Friday struck out a suit challenging the provisions of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. Section 84, subsection 12 of the legislation holds that no political appointee at any level shall be a voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or Congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. There have been diverse opinions to the topic, as the President, Muhammadu Buhari, had asked the National Assembly to delete the contended clause and was met with a refusal.
The 2022 Ekiti State gubernatorial election took place on 18 June 2022 to elect the governor of Ekiti State, Abiodun Oyebanji of the All Progressives Congress, APC. was declared governor-elect in the early hours of 19 June 2022 by a 30% margin over first runner-up and Social Democratic Party SDP nominee, former Governor Olusegun Oni. In total, Oyebanji obtained about 187,000 votes and 53% of the vote. Runner-up Oni received around 82,000 votes and 23% of the vote, while BC Kolawole of the People's Democratic Party PDP came in third with over 67,000 votes and 19% of the vote.
And finally, no fewer than 40 persons were killed and many injured by some terrorists who attacked St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, on the 5th of June 2022. This is but one instance of the high level of insecurity and the attacks on religious gatherings. According to data collected by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, ACLED, there have been already 23 separate attacks on church premises and people linked to them so far this year. For the whole of 2021, there were 31, and in 2020, there were 18. In April 2012, gunmen killed at least 15 people in the university theater being used by Christian worshippers in the northern city of Kano. And later that year, at least 19 people died in an attack on a church in central Nigeria. In the second leg of the roundtable discussion this morning, we will explore various discussions from religious fanaticism and intolerance, the Electoral Act 2022. We'll take a trip down to Ekiti for recap on the gubernatorial elections that happened there and attacks on religious gatherings. We'll connect with our guests during the course of the conversation. We hope to be able to speak. I spoke with him last night on Tuesday, and he confirmed that he would be available for this conversation. The state commander of the Amotekun Corps in Ondo State, I'm talking about Chief Adetunji Adile. We also hope to connect with a journalist in Ado-Ekiti, Fortune Omoshola, who is the head of news and current affairs of Voice FM, if I'm not mistaken, in Ado-Ekiti. And those would form our resource personnel. Of course, us here in the studio having this roundtable conversation. Since we'll be starting with the religious intolerance thing, I think back to growing up. And primary school comes to mind, nursery school comes to mind.
Right.
And I had friends in my class who would play. We had things to do together. As a matter of fact, maybe growing up now, you might think of some things that you did. For instance, if you have to play whatever game, Ludo, whatever it was, you had to play with them. And it never mattered what religion such people I played with practiced. But we have a situation now whereby there is that, there's a Muslim ticket talk, there's the Christian talk,
Right.
there is several things along the lines of religion. Thinking back, for me, it's odd, it's unusual, it's not supposed to be the norm. But, if you have to do some sort of tracing, how would you feel that we got here whereby that divide is getting wider by the day when it comes to religion for you?
Well, I experienced everything that you experienced growing up. My best friend grew up Muslim. She's a Christian now, but she grew up in a typical Muslim household. And, I think one thing you have to understand is where you grew up, the geographical location of where you grew
Okay.
up, the demographic. Because I'm very aware that down south, there's a lot of religious tolerance.
That's right.
Right? You have households where the father is a Muslim, the mother is a Christian.
Right.
You have no choice. You have to be tolerant, in the religious aspect. And so that kind of spread far and wide across the West. And even, in the East as well. Down south. But I have peers who I met, in the course of growing up, going to school, maybe even serving, who say that they're growing up as maybe a Christian up north, in the core areas of the north, wasn't a walk in the park. Some can recount instances where they've had to get up in the middle of the night to run for their lives, because their houses were set on fire. So I think we are speaking from the experience that we had growing up. In some areas, it's always been this bad. I'm talking about what they have experienced. Right. There's always been the extremism going on. But for us down here, we can afford to be surprised because it's now being put out there. The media is now doing a lot more work. Social media is there, which wasn't there back then. So everything is put up in our faces. But what I feel about it is that, I've always looked at this religion thing in the sense that it's kind of categorized. In my understanding, it seems like there's religion for the poor and religion for the rich, because you see instances where some religions are against a particular thing, a particular act, right? But then someone who practices that religion, who is known to practice that religion, is probably placed high up there. The rules do not apply to them. What a lower class citizen will probably be, ridiculed for or exiled for, the upper class get away with. So this brings to mind so many questions. What exactly is the use of religion? Is it, because I know a lot of people argue that it is being used as a tool to manipulate, a certain less enlightened sect of people. I don't know if this from what we can see, do you think that is actually what it is all about?
Well, that's a big question, but I would answer that. But Uzo, your own growing up experience and religious tolerance or otherwise, what was it like? If you can recount, basically.
Gbenga, I don't know when you were born, perhaps in the 80s and maybe there in the 80s or 90s. But the truth is, religious intolerance has always been in Nigeria. Of course, like Dara rightly said, it's always been a tool in which political leaders use to divide Nigeria. Hence the reason why our forefathers, when bringing up the idea of Nigeria, thought that Nigeria should be a secular state, because they knew, back then that religion would be a tool, of somewhat some would call division, and basically that's what we're seeing, and so it's rather sad, that since I don't know, Christianity or Islam came to Nigeria, there's been that sort of I don't know, what I call intolerance between both religious sects. So, again, like I said, I don't know the year you're talking about, because religious intolerance has always been in Nigeria. You talk about when you're growing up as a kid. When growing up as a kid, there was nothing like Muslim and Christianity.
Exactly.
We had as a child, you don't know anything about
What religion the other person
what the
practices.
religion the other person practices. You don't know anything about, this is if you're not a Christian, you're a sinner. And if you're not a Muslim, you're an infidel. We never knew anything like that.
Right.
It's when we grew up we discovered that, if you're a Muslim, and you're not, if you're not a Muslim, then you're an infidel. If you're not a Christian, then you're a sinner. So I think growing up, I never knew anything like that. But of course, those who grew up in the 60s and the 70s who also experienced something similar to that. The fact that there's been bits of religious intolerance. It might not be blown
As it is
yeah,
now.
as it is right now because of Boko Haram and the likes of other religious extremist group, but religious intolerance has always been there. Bits of it has always been there in the Nigerian polity.
Okay, one of the reasons why I also referenced and feel we should also talk about this in some way is, case in point, 1993 presidential election. There's a talk about Muslim ticket, Christian ticket, which is definitely along the lines of religion,
Right.
whatever it is. The person who, the acclaimed winner of that annulled election, Mko Abiola, was a Muslim.
Right.
His running mate was a Muslim. As a matter of
Absolutely
fact, I
agree.
saw a movie recently. I do recommend that people can see it. Badamasi, it's a Nigerian movie, by the way. And I also read a few things after I was done seeing the movie. How IBB at the time mentioned that Abiola should not pick a Muslim as his running mate.
Right.
But he did, and people voted for him. So
Nigerians
Exactly
at that point.
the point.
No, listen now. Nigerians at that point in time were tired of military rule. We wanted civilian rule. So at that point in time, even if it's a Muslim traditional ruler, traditional, religious person, Nigerians will go for that person. At that point we were tired. So anything other than a military rule, we're willing to accept. So I think again, during that era, religion wasn't our priority.
Okay.
What was our major priority was the fact that we wanted a civilian rule. We're tired of dictatorial rule, authoritarian rule. So we wanted democracy, like all the climes we're practicing. In USA, in the UK. So it didn't matter to us at that point in time whether it was a Muslim, Muslim president, or a Muslim vice president. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, in thinking about this again as well, perhaps you have a point talking about how at that point in time it was just what really mattered. I mean, get the military out of power,
Right.
let the civilians come into power, and all of that. And would you, in a way, because I mean, I've also heard conversation in this line where something maybe that's what has actually played out in some way, where Nigerians have not exactly made what should term the ideal choice of a set of leaders. It's just, we don't want this guy, so any other person but him would do. So, and then if you now bring this back to the religious formations that we have, I mean, for what it were, the major ones, the Christians, the Muslims, in no particular order now, and we also have the traditional worshippers,
Right.
and all of that. So, the religious leaders, can we lay blame at their doorstep as reasons why this intolerance has gotten wider?
Absolutely. Section 35 or Section 38 of the Nigerian Constitution, subsection 1, guarantees freedom of religion. I absolutely agree with that. So you can practice whatever religion you
Right.
you want. You understand? If you want to practice Christianity, if you want to practice Islam, if you want to practice, traditional worship, whatever religion, practice it. You're free to do that under the Nigerian polity. Section, if I'm not mistaken now, correct me, Section 39 of the Nigerian Constitution also guarantees what you call freedom of expression, right? So you can also say whatever you want to say. Right,
Section 39(1).
Section 39(1). But I think the religious leaders fail to understand that even though you have Section 39, Section 38, Section 39, Section 40, Section 41, that also preaches about freedom of rights, of Nigerians. They fail to understand Section 45 of the Nigerian Constitution, and Section 45 of the Nigerian Constitution stipulates that you cannot just say anything, right? And religious leaders are at fault in that area, where you have unguarded, you have twisted gospels, you also have the hadith and some messages from the pastors and from the Muslims
Right.
who go against what's the real practice of Islam or Christianity is all about, and who see sometimes it says something like I earlier mentioned, if you are not a Muslim, you are an infidel. If you're not a Christian, you are a sinner. And so such teachings from the altar, from religious leaders these days, I would say enhances religious extremism, or some would say religious intolerance, like you said. So I think majorly, religious leaders in Nigeria are at fault. Also, I had a conversation around this, Deborah. I mean, one of the reasons why we're bringing up this issue, there's religious intolerance and extremism, was the instance that happened in Sokoto, Deborah, who was gruesomely killed. And the truth of the matter is, during that time, religious leaders, Muslim religious leaders, some of them didn't really come out, during their sermon to really condemn that act, outrightly. And so when you don't do that, it gives, your followers the impetus to do more. To say that, religious extremism is actually the way to go. Being a warrior for Islam is actually the way to go. And so again, like you rightly said, I think that religious leaders are to blame.
Okay.
For this issues in Nigeria.
Should we not be talking about the people, the followers themselves, the gullibility, maybe the naivety sometimes, that they just accept everything hook, line, and sinker from whatever preacher gives it to them and says, I've heard ridiculous things in the name of religion.
Well, see, this is where the separation of education comes in. There's no education. If you were, by societal standards, uneducated, you are more gullible and more vulnerable to any information that comes to you, because you do not have the means to sift through that information on your own and decide for yourself what is right and what is not right. So you have a situation where this is a deliberate thing, okay? It's a deliberate ploy. Take away the education, fill them with religious teachings. For example, if you ask some of these people that lean towards religious extremism, what a section of the books that they used to practice says, they can't tell you. Some of them can't even read. So they're just going based off the knowledge that has been poured down to them. And so you even have situations where a religious leader is not even particularly well versed in the teachings of that religion, pouring out information to suit his standards. Right? You give instances about, it's not even just when Uzor mentioned how you saw how religious leaders did not say anything. It wasn't even just about ignoring. It was about some of them actually, in some cases, stylishly condoning that act. Giving reasons why that act is supposed to be seen as normal. And then you have the judiciary who did absolutely nothing, because whether or not you like it, that was a life that was taken. That was murder.
Right.
And nothing has been done about that case. Nothing has been done. It's been died down. And so we have a very large situation in our hands where we're trying to look at how powerful the tool of religion is in this country. Right? You have some nations who deliberately clamp down on religious extremism. You're allowed to practice by way of whatever you're allowed to practice. But they find ways of making it sane. For example, you cannot bring religion into some certain things. Right? There are some times where you have to leave your religion at the door. When you come in, you do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
We were talking about, Section 38 of the Constitution that says it's our right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, and that we are free to express our way of worship in our schools and in our courts. Now, this brings me back to the razzmatazz that happened sometime last week, Chief Malcolm, that went into court with his
traditional regalia.
Right now, how do you hold him? What are you supposed to pin on him? Because he's doing what you have said. He's allowed to practice his religion in the schools and in the courts. These are some of the things that you look at other nations deliberately clamp down on. It's not for, lack of wanting you to do what you want to do in the sense of worship in whatever way you want to worship. It's more for the sense of sanity and balance.
Right.
Everything needs a balance. Right? Christianity is not the first religion, or rather Nigeria is not the first country to have Christianity imported into us. You have other countries. You have countries like China and Japan. We're not saying we like your Christianity, we like it, but it's not going to take away what we have here as the standard religion that has been set in our society. You still have Buddhism, you still have Hinduism, and that just goes to show that they are rooted in their culture, because whether or not we like it, religion is stemmed from culture. So they are rooted in their culture. They accept what you bring in and they filter it out. They do not allow for the extremism, which is where we kind of have the problem. We take the good, we take the bad, we take the downright ugly. And when you have just these things work for just a few set of people.
Right.
Because you poison someone's mind to the point where he's not even afraid to die. Promises that even you yourself are not sure of. 7 virgins in heaven if you take your life, you're not sure of it. You would never do it. but you make their minds so porous through lack of education, so that whatever you pour in, they just
That's what
take
they
in.
think.
Gbenga, can I quickly come in
Yes.
here?
All right.
And maybe not really agree with Dara when she said it's a lack of education that enables gullibility. Those who gruesomely murdered
Deborah,
Deborah, were
Samuel.
yes, they were educated.
They were in school. It's not the same thing as being educated, especially up north. It's
They
not the
were
same thing.
they were educated. I give you an example also. The Nigerian who wanted to bomb the airplane, so Abdul
Abdul Muttalab.
Muttalab was very educated. You know, extremists around the world, most of them were very also opined as a matter of religious leaders twisting the truth. Because the thing is this: Islam doesn't preach killing, people from other religious groups because you want to go to Al Jannah. Islam doesn't preaches that. So again, it's some religious leaders, from that faith who are twisting the truth, and sort of making these people believe that the
Nothing to do with education.
Okay.
You can't rule the lack of education in this. You cannot rule the lack of education from this, and that's where I stand. Yes, he has a very large point.
Okay.
You know, you do have people that were properly educated, schooled by as a Western education. For whatever reason, they decided to tilt towards this extremism.
Right.
It might be best known to them. Sometimes you look deep, it's always as an act of it's up with doing this in the name of so and so religion. So you cannot rule out the lack of education in this, because I gave a very clear example. Ask a typical from who is, an extreme book says. They do not know. So how do you rule that out? How do you say it has nothing to do with it?
Well, we see some thoughts on Facebook already. I'm sure they will give them on WhatsApp as press with this. Please send them comments. Twitter at Splash FM 1067. Use the hashtag Panorama on Splash so we can be able to pick your tweet for easy access. To connect with the state command very shortly. As we move now to, we have to move pretty quickly to the issue of insecurity together. Well, I think about this sometimes, the issue of insecurity that is bedeviling the and each dastardly act committed whatever group or whatever group of people, the reaction from the federal government always seems to be the same. We condemn in its totality the act that has been, carried out. The perpetrators will be fished out and dealt with according to what the dictates of the law say.
Right.
But we've also seen that either there's a foot dragging or the process of apprehending these criminals is pretty difficult or something. And if you speak to the average Nigerian now about the confidence they have in the federal government's ability to tackle insecurity, I think it's an all-time low, So, if each time these things have happened, let me start with Uzor in this regard. What has been your first reaction, especially from the federal government with condemning its totality, the act that was committed by these criminals who fished them out and all of that? There's always look as though it's just another talk. Get done.
it is really annoying. It is really annoying. I'm trying to just hold back because I really want to pour out my heart when it comes to insecurity. I was asking Lola the other time when we had a conversation away from the mic about about insecurity, particularly. Gbenga, you recall that I think it was the EFCC, if I'm not mistaken, who came out to say that they have a list of, sponsors, of this, extremist groups in Nigeria. Till this moment, Gbenga, we don't know their names. President Muhammadu Buhari, will come out and tell Nigerians that there are certain people who are using religion, who are using this act, to divide the country, to make the country, do you know names, Gbenga? Understand? The president knows their names, so why is the president not doing anything to prosecute these people? You have their names, you haven't prosecuted them, so does it not mean that these people will continue, carrying out, those acts? So it is really funny, really absolutely funny that, let me put this into perspective, Gbenga. An attacks on religious gatherings. In 2022, we have 23 separate attacks. In 2021, you have 31 separate attacks, on religious gatherings. We're still talking about insecurity in Nigeria. In 2020, now this report I'm bringing, it's from the Armed Conflict Location and Events Data Project. In 2020, you have 18 separate attacks on religious gatherings. In April 2012, which is the highest ever, you had about 15 killed in a university theater used by Christians in Kano. 19 killed in a church in central Nigeria.
Right.
The president came out, after the attacks, at the war, came out to say, like I earlier posited, that there are certain elements in Nigeria, certain people who are responsible for this, who want to destabilize the polity. And my question again is this: why has the president not really done anything about it? He's always charging the service chiefs, the service chiefs to do something, but nothing has been done. The amount of people who have died as a result of insecurity and nothing tangible has been done to curb this is really alarming. So I think the presidency, aren't doing enough. We'll talk about state policing. State policing is one way. It's a means in which you can also curb the issue of insecurity. But the federal government are not open into state policing. And until, they tilt towards that area, tilt towards the area of state policing, these attacks will keep going on. When or what happened, there was the issue of state policing. What did the federal government do about it? What did they say about state policing? So I think they're not really serious. I think they're not serious about one of their core duty, which is protecting the lives and property of Nigerians.
And then to add to that, when you spoke about the confidence that the people have regarding the security, Zamfara State governor has resorted to self-help, asking the people to acquire guns and defend themselves.
That's Zamfara State, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Zamfara.
Borno also did the same few days just before this.
Yeah, he ordered the commissioner of police in the state to issue licenses to willing residents. How has it got this far? Now, when you mirror it to countries like the U.S. who is banning guns,
right,
and the high state of insecurity, the high state of poverty that we have in this country, is this not chaos waiting to happen? Because we've heard instances of a farmer being attacked in his having a defend himself and being prosecuted because he is illegal possession of firearms. Now we have this law coming into place in Zamfara State. We have people who do not have anything to eat, really own guns, breaking out. So these are things that we have to start looking at. When you hear somebody being responsible for a crime, I think or a massacre, made mention of people that have been named to be.
We should not forget the Abuja Kaduna train attack.
Yes, made mention of have been named to be sponsors of certain terrorist groups. A lot of noise for the first week, the second week, the third week, and then it dies down. Do you not think that we as a people have a part to play? Holding one person responsible and saying, as a matter of fact, no, until we see the end of this, because all it takes is just one person.
Right.
You know, you make an example of one person and you say, we are going to see the end of it from beginning to end. And then who knows? It might make things better. It might not, but it will be a process. It will be a tipping point. It will be a case of you can no longer just, sweep things under the rug with the belief and the assurance that Nigerians will forget, because that's the truth. We forget. We forget all these things.
Really, we're not even talking about, look, if you're a Yahoo boy in Nigeria, you can get away with it. Or you can get away with it. There's a possibility you kill people. There's a possibility that you might get away with it. Look, the policies put in place by the federal government, in my opinion, are just foolhardy. You say that people who kill, who maim, should be de-radicalized, reintegrated in the society. And in some way you think that it doesn't spur other extremists to do more. How? In what way? You know, you give them a free pass. I kill people. I come out as, a repentant terrorist. Where does it happen, Gbenga? Where does it happen? Does it happen in the US?
Right.
There was an all-out attack, from one of the terrorist group, of course in Afghanistan, Al
Al-Qaeda, right.
Al Qaeda in America. You saw how the George Bush reacted to that. He didn't give terrorists a free pass. We heard of Guantanamo.
Say, surrender your arms.
We heard of Guantanamo Bay. So for terrorists, who of course might want to attack America. Of course, there are talks around it goes against humor, but that is the strong stance against terrorism in America. So do we have any strong stand against it? We don't have any strong stand against terrorism in Nigeria, because you're giving them, like I said, a free pass. I commit a terrorist act, and the next thing you do is to de-radicalize me and you even give me a job, Gbenga. You give me
probably scholarship.
Scholarship to Gbenga. I don't even Gbenga. I'm a graduate. You understand? I struggled before I got this particular job, and a terrorist can easily just get a job. All he needs to do is just claim that, look,
I surrender my
arms. I surrender my arms. I'm no longer a terrorist.
Okay, well, in as much as we've talked about how the confidence of the people in the security architecture to attack and tackle the issue, headlong as much as possible, we must also mention that there have been a few wins. Recently, I must say that from my experience, there was the day I felt really down and felt like when it comes to security in Nigeria, we seem to have lost it, was when the daughter of former Afenifere leader, Fashion Roti, was killed. I think there is this air around us in the Southwest, like, okay, it happens in the North, so we seem to be safe in the Southwest. When I knew that thing happened, I think it was the Ore Highway, and I felt, come on, this thing is home now.
Close to home.
That was like, guy, wake
you can
up.
imagine what they have been going through for years and years.
It's as close as that now. So, but recently, about 4 or 5 of them were convicted for those who were arrested, and
life sentences.
Some of them are supposed to be killed. And that made me also feel like, oh, so if the security formations want to work,
they will.
I think they will.
They absolutely
will. They have what it takes, but there are people who have also talked about how they feel maybe there are forces in certain quarters that are really drawbacks to the security formations. Without having to measure anyone in particular, but that feeling of if the security formations really want to go after these criminals, I think they have what it takes.
So what you're saying is this. Let me understand it. So you're saying that the security agencies in Nigeria, or the security forces of Nigeria, they have what it takes to tackle.
We're talking about the security agents who gave intel. I think it was close to Easter about how religious formations could be attacked.
And have you had conversations with any military personnel before, one-on-one, away from the mic, one-on-one, conversations with them about the insecurity?
A few.
And what was your response in terms of the structure these people have vis-a-vis the structure the Nigerian military possess?
Well, from what I can remember, with a few that I've spoken with, who I would say,
Yeah.
there's a way those at the top know exactly what is happening. But I mean, they might never come out to tell you. But I mean, if you're not privy to what happens at the top, you can only see as much as you know from your position where you occupy. So, I mean, they will tell you things of how it's pretty difficult, and maybe they don't have what it takes to really fight insecurity and all of that. But I don't buy that. If you ask me, I don't.
What I think is the security units are not properly equipped. What played out there was probably, using all of their arsenal, everything that they had at their disposal to catch the culprits of that particular murder because of the status of the person that was affected. This doesn't apply to the regular person. Okay. Right? They do not have enough. We have cases where they are complaining about, rationed bullets, for crying out loud. What do they have to fight with? Right? So in as much as they may have the brain power, they are very limited. Their resources are rather limited. I think we have to talk about that, and we have to look at that angle.
We're also talking about the Nigerian military that gets deployed to troubled zones outside of this country, and they have gallantry results in that region.
Have you seen videos of some soldiers complaining about the state of their weapons? Bitterly complaining.
Several, actually.
So these are the issues. It's one thing to zone people. What are they going to fight with? They're not going to fight with their bare arms. And then they're up against people that are well equipped. You look at the equipment because they are properly sponsored. And they're well equipped. It's like asking me to go fight a bazooka with a catapult. What am I going to do? Sometimes it's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous, really.
Okay.
Even the Cardinal train attack, the sophisticated weapon used to attack that train, I'm not sure if the security agencies, the forces in Nigeria, would be expecting something like that. You also saw in the news, you're a news person, you saw in the news that, of course, the Nigerian, I think it was the Nigerian military who came out to debunk the report that a particular set of people, I think a particular militant group in the north, got hold of a helicopter.
Okay.
Yes, and they came out to debunk it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they would have something like that. I served in a military barracks, or joined military barracks. I had conversations with military men, and they told me about the sophisticated weapons these people, in the northeastern part of Nigeria, possess. Weapons that even the Nigerian military haven't even seen in their life. They intercept information. How do they do that? The technology to intercept information, intercept intelligence, it's not easy to come by. So I want to agree with Dara when she said, look, they are really, outmanned, talking about the Nigerian security agencies. Again, that's the reason why we're calling for state policing, Gbenga. State policing.
Okay, I was hoping that we'll connect with like I referenced before, the state commander of the Amotekun Corps in Ondo State, but for some reason, we cannot seem to reach him. He did give his word to join us, but sometimes these things happen, so you'd have to bear with us in that regard. We'll keep trying if we can reach him before 9 a.m. Pardon me. Would get his take about that state policing thing. But we should also say, Dara said something that I think we should hold, which is the fact that, these state governors who've talked about, give the people arms and them fight themselves. I think that's a major recipe for chaos.
It is.
There's no other way to put it. And if you also bear in mind the fact that, yes, people could be angry about the insecurity situation and feel like, let's take the laws into our hands.
For now.
We are not saying don't do that.
What happens, try and picturing. You take up arms and then you deal with your security threats on your own. What happens when the security threats are gone and you still have your arms?
Exactly my point. So that means, for instance, if there are just probably steps on my turn, I feel like I've got an arm and I can make use of it. Chaos.
it becomes a situation of, oh, okay, this person offends me. And you don't even think to do the proper thing. You don't even think to call the police. You take matters into your own arms and then you claim it's self-defense, which is what, a lot of these other countries are severely battling with.
Right, especially the US.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Nigeria is a peculiar state, yeah. It's a peculiar state. Gbenga, I'm not safe. You are not safe. Dara is not safe. So what is the alternative? The Nigerian state isn't willing to protect us. You know, they aren't willing to protect us. So what do we do? So I wouldn't blame the state governors for saying let the Nigerian citizens be arms, because there is no alternative. There is no alternative.
Okay, well, I know there are. It seems as though there is the laxity from the Nigerian populace in some way, not to apply pressure in the right quarters.
Gbenga, everybody has applied pressure. This we're doing right now is pressure. Who hasn't applied pressure? Is it the victim, the families of the victims that haven't applied pressure? Is it the governors themselves, or the political class that come and condemn 100 condemnations and 0 actions taken? Everybody applies pressure. The powers that be know what to do. They know what to do. I think it's high time we stop making excuses.
Well, I still personally feel we can do more in that regard. I mean, there are lawmakers who are pretty close that can be held to account.
But the thing with insurgency and things like this, no matter how, safe you think you are, because by virtue of the fact that you support or you endorse or you sponsor, you cannot particularly tell how things will play out, right? You cannot tell when these people will go out of hand, okay? And so what happens is when they start to go out of hand, you become a victim as well. And I think that's what they're beginning to see. It never used to bother them because it was a problem for the lower class of people.
Right.
But now it's touching everybody. Gbenga, Nigeria has never been as unsafe as it is presently, not even in the Civil War.
I agree.
At least in the Civil War, you could pack yourself and your family to one zone of the country and be assured of safety. No place is safe here in the country presently. There's no there's no hiding place.
Gbenga, don't be quick to forget Dansuku Gates. See, when you see things like this, Gbenga, you should know that the Nigerian state are not willing to protect the lives and properties of Nigeria. Imagine somebody embezzling how many $2 billion.
Right.
Weapons that were meant or were procured to defend the nation against insurgency. And somebody had to siphon that money to his account. $2 billion. $2 billion.
Imagine what that could have done.
So you're not telling me that the Nigerian states are really ready to,
And for what this was, I don't even know what has become of the Dasuki Gate saga and all of that, But this is just us trying to do a bit. This is our special edition of Panorama, by the way. We call it Panorama Roundtable, trying to spotlight and look at in detail some of the biggest issues that have dominated the space in the past 6 months. We're due for a commercial break very soon. Let's take a call or two before we proceed on that break. I know there are comments on WhatsApp already, a number of them. We'll get to them very shortly. But the numbers are 0704 400 1067, 0817 444 1067, as well as 0705 050 1067. Those are the 3 numbers you can use. But for WhatsApp, it's 0817 555 1067. Perhaps we can read a message or two.
All right, let's take this message on WhatsApp from Abiola. Good morning, Panorama. This issue of terrorists and their sponsors in Nigeria, I don't think this present administration will have the audacity to announce them and bring them to justice, because the government itself is corrupt and shady. They all have skeletons in their cupboards. There's a Yoruba saying, oh wow, I'm
Skip
so
it.
sorry.
Yeah, skip it.
No, I'm going to try it. Taba faguru buru afagbu.
Taba fagburu, bura fagbu.
Yeah, taba faguru buru afagbu. Yeah. Any action they will eventually take will come back to haunt them. That's why they're handicapped. Only God and we ourselves can save us from these cruel and wicked leaders we have.
Okay, let's engage this person for a few
Good
seconds.
morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for calling us.
Alan is my name, calling from Abeokuta.
Go on, please.
Well, about the insecurity, I think we are all into it, but the government have failed to address it from the word go. We are where we are today because those who are governing us have failed to do what is necessary to keep us together, to make Nigeria moving. As well, your last word, if somebody has custody of $2 billion, that $2 billion can go around and solve a lot of problems within the country. But because people have found a lot of things are becoming problems, that is why we continue to have the insecurity. Except we take the bull by the horn and do what is necessary and keep an egalitarian community, we will not be able to solve the problem. Unfortunately, the elites are so much aware, they are so much involved in this act, whether to settle score, whether to bring something to come on board for their own selfish benefit. That is why the insecurity issue has to continue the way it is. Except we are ready to address it and give to everybody what they desire within the community. As a Nigerian, we will not be able to solve the problem at the long run. Number two, the issue of Muslim tickets that you have talked. We need to be very careful as Nigerians. We are clamoring that there's problem somewhere. And we hope that somebody that is coming on board will be able to solve the problem. If you are now divided along this line, rather than facing the problem headline and have it solved for those who are coming on board, I think we do not get our bearing in the same way too. If the issue is that those who will come in, at least will not leave them on their own. We are there, we are to challenge them, we are to make them to see when they are making the mistake, when they are not giving us our right at every point in time. That one will force them to be on their toes.
Alara, please wrap up. We need to proceed on a commercial break.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, thank you. We'd appreciate if you can call us again, though, once we get done from the commercial break. Thank you for your thoughts so far. We'll proceed on that break and we'll come back. We'll still talk about the Equity Gubar elections as well as the Electoral Act 2022. Stay here. Panorama.
Panorama.
Panorama. Panorama.
Panorama.
Panorama on Splash 106.7 FM.
Don't dare touch that dial. It's Splash, your integrity station.
Gbogbo ẹgbẹ́ mọ̀lì ṣàbí lápapọ̀ ẹ tẹ́tí gbọ́ mi, ìròyìn ayọ̀ ni mo mú wá. Bóyá o, ilé iṣẹ́ alálùbáríkà tí pọ́ǹpì onílẹ̀ tó talẹ̀ ìfọ̀kànbalẹ̀ ń kórè bọ̀ wá o. Àbújá Èkìtì Ìbàdàn Ìlọrin ti ń jàǹfààní rẹpẹtẹ lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan. Òdodo ni báyìí o, ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn ló kàn o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni o, oríire ti kàn wá ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn tí pọ́ǹpì concept tó ń talẹ̀ tó ń fi ní lọ́kàn balẹ̀ ń bọ̀. Kò ní gbẹ́ mọ́ta wa náà mọ̀ jàǹfààní lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan. Bí wọ́n ṣe gbẹ́nu tí pọ́ǹpì concept onílẹ̀ l'Àbújá, Èkìtì, Ìbàdàn àti Ìlọrin ìpínlẹ̀ Kwara. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ wípé tí pọ́ǹpì ṣe yàtọ̀ ojúra wọn lọ. Báyọ̀ sí lọ́rọ̀ tiwọn o. Ẹ gbọ́ dáadáa báyìí ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn ká máa kíra wa kú oríire. Tí pọ́ǹpì concept tó ń talẹ̀ fún ni kọ́lé láìsí wàhálà ń bọ̀.
Àti kórede, àti múrewa, àmúrewa ṣe máa ṣe nìyẹn. Tí pọ́ǹpì ló ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Tí pọ́ǹpì concept developer that cares.
Ogun State Internal Revenue Service presents Ogun State Electronic Tax Administration Portal, OGETax. Now you can transact all your businesses online with Ogun State Internal Revenue Service by logging on to their website ogirs.ogunstate.gov.ng. Click on self-service to get to the OGIRS portal. Transact your businesses either as a corporate organization or an individual. Follow the promptings, fill out the necessary details required to get your tax identification number. Existing organizations and individuals will need only to validate their accounts. Organizations can file their monthly and annual returns by downloading and filling the Excel template, upload the data, and make payments, while individuals can also transact their stamp duty, direct assessment, and so on. Log on to ogirs.ogunstate.gov.ng and transact all your businesses online with Ogun State Internal Revenue Service.
orí mo dúpẹ́ rẹ̀lẹ́ àìṣojú mi o. orúkọ tèmi ni Dr. Shakirudeen Akorede tí gbogbo èèyàn mọ̀ sí orí. gẹ́gẹ́ bí a ṣe mọ̀ yìí pé ọdún àmì ni ọdún iléyá ó yẹ kí iléyá yìí ní àmì rere fún èmi àti yín. ìdí èyí ní iléeṣẹ́ IAS ṣe gbé àǹfààní aláìlẹ́gbẹ́ kan kalẹ̀ torí bó ṣe ń ra Profit City orílẹ̀ ajé tó wà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ Country Garden tó jẹ́ ìrìn ìṣẹ́jú méje sí Alámàlà Barracks Randa Abẹ́òkúta. bó o ti ń ra plọ́ọ̀tì kan ní ẹ̀dínwó 200,000 naira lásìkò iléyá promo yìí wàá gba ògúnfẹ́ ńlá kan àti ìlàjì àpò rẹ̀. tó o bá sì ra plọ́ọ̀tì méjì 400,000 naira tó o sanwó ẹ̀ lẹ́ẹ̀kan wàá gba àgbo ńlá kan ráìsì ìlàjì àpò pẹ̀lú òróró 10 litres. tí agbára bá wá ká 1 acre pẹ̀lú ẹ̀dínwó 1.2 million naira tí o sì sanwó ẹ̀ lẹ́ẹ̀kan wàá gba màálù ńlá kan àpò rẹsì kan àti òróró 25 litres.
láti jẹ àǹfààní yìí pé 08092944848 ọjọ́ kejì oṣù keje làǹfààní máa wá sópin o.
gbogbo ará Abẹ́òkúta àtàgbègbè ẹ̀ àkókò òmìnira dé.
ayé ló sọ kò lè níláárí kíyèsí Ọlọ́run kò sọ bẹ́ẹ̀.
gbogbo èèyàn lolúwa fẹ́ fún ní òmìnira pátápátá níbi ìsọjí ìta gbangba ọlọ́jọ́ mẹ́ta tí àkòrí rẹ̀ jẹ́ let my people go jẹ́ káwọn èèyàn mi lọ. tolúwa gbé kalẹ̀ látọwọ́ ilé Ọlọ́run Christ Apostolic Church Divine Solution Evangelical Mission PSEM tó wà ní Fajol Estate Ọ̀bántòkò Abẹ́òkúta Múdàláwà Stadium Aṣẹ́rò Abẹ́òkúta ní ìsọjí alágbára ọlọ́jọ́ mẹ́ta yìí yóò ti wáyé láti Wednesday sí Friday July 6 to 8 Superintendent lolùgbàlejò àgbà ìsọjí let my people go ní Múdàláwà Stadium July 6 to 8 Jésù ń retí rẹ níbẹ̀ o.
Dedo multi-concept services limited.
pẹ̀lú owó àkọ́kọ́ sọ 100,000 naira ṣe é mọ̀ wípé ẹ lè gba ilẹ̀ kẹ́tù gba àgọ́ ọdún. mo ní kí n wá sọ fún yín ni o kó tún kásẹ̀ lẹ̀ pé iléyá promo 2022 ti iléeṣẹ́ Dedo multi-concept services limited ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ ní June 10 ọdún tá a wá yìí tó wà ní Kọ́bápẹ́ Ìdíròrì Alábàtà Alámàlà Amóni Òkè Àtà Ìyànà Ìlógbò Òkè Àró Randa àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. bẹ́ẹ̀ bá ralẹ̀ láti 1 million naira sókè àgbò kan ìrẹsì báàgì kan àti òróró 5 litres lẹ́ máa gbà kún lórí ilẹ̀ 500,000 naira sókè àgbò kan ráìsì ìlàjì àpò àti òróró 5 litres lẹ́ máa gbà kún lórí ilẹ̀ tuntun 200,000 naira sí 499,000 naira ògúnfe kan ìrẹsì báàgì kan pẹ̀lú òróró 5 litres lórí ilẹ̀ tuntun 100,000 naira sí 199,000 naira ìrẹsì 10 kg pẹ̀lú òróró 1 litre lẹ́ máa gbà lórí ilẹ̀ 50,000 naira sí 99,000 naira ìrẹsì 5 kg lẹ́ máa gbà. ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ jàǹfààní iléyá promo 2022 yìí kó tún kásẹ̀ lẹ̀ ní July 10. ẹ kàn sí Dedo multi-concept services limited ní number 10 Kala building Abiola Way Abẹ́òkúta tàbí kẹ́ pè wọ́n sórí 0906-886-0437.
It's time to close shop on all the radio stations.
In person.
And the award goes to...
Oh my God!
The king is now in the city.
Thank you.
Welcome to Splash 106.7 FM Abeokuta.
Panorama.
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 Panorama on Splash 106.7 FM. Thank you very much for staying with us. Panorama, the Roundtable Edition, the second and final day, we're spotlighting issues that have dominated the space for this year, the first 6 months, which would end today, 30th of June 2022. We've touched on the issue that brought on insecurity. We've also talked about religious intolerance and extremism and fanaticism. Would still talk about the Ekiti Gubar election as well as the Electoral Act 2022. Let's take a call or two and read a few more comments, and then we'll connect with our friend who is in Ekiti State. He's the head of news and current affairs at Voice FM in Ekiti, by the way. So we're reading a few more comments on WhatsApp.
All right, okay, let's head to WhatsApp now. Peter from Belkuta says, okay, this is quite lengthy. Good morning, Splash FM and Panorama Group. Uzor, can you define who a Christian is, who is a Muslim? For me, I will say knowledge is key, as our colleague said. Knowledge goes beyond hearing, but going forward to read it out. The major problem Nigeria has is that we follow what we hear. See how fake news spreads. Even the learned will also spread such information without making inquiries. Christianity is not by birth or name or nation. Christianity is a conscious acceptance of Jesus and following his wills, meaning if you disobey his will, the person is not a Christian. Remember what Jesus corrected Peter after he cut off the ear of his arrestor? We all claim to be Christians, but we are not all Christ-like always, so we live by grace. The Muslims also have their definition. Some set of people are changing our ideology because we failed to get knowledge. That's Peter from Abeokuta.
Let's take this call.
Right.
We'll proceed. Hi, good morning. Thanks for calling us. Good morning. Hold on. Let's try to fix a few things. Just hold on a little bit. Can you hear us now, Nicholas?
Yeah, I can hear you clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go on.
Okay. In 1984 or 85, some Chadians attacked Nigeria. Buhari was a colonel then. He did not need an order from Shagari to chase those bastards, snuff their lives, and kept chasing them into Chadian
Nicholas,
authority.
we need to be careful of the words we use. It's very important. We need to be civil, okay?
Okay, sorry. Sorry. But when he kept chasing them, it almost became an international issue until he now came back. There is in that same month, a famine broke out in Chad. The Chadians called that famine El Buhari. That was the might of the Nigerian army and soldiers. But unfortunately, when your Chief Justice retires out of allegation of corruption by his fellow justices, and you reward him with 2.5 billion naira and with the GTON, it shows the challenges of the non-kinetic forces in fighting terrorism. When 5 policemen secure a musician and shoot on his behalf, and one dies because he's opening the gate for a former governor, and one is helping a big one to carry food, internal security will be threatened. When the Accountant General is moving freely, some people call him the Yahoo General, and you now arrest and you now slam 15 years on landlords of Yahoo boys who might be far outside the country, it shows an attack on the non-kinetic forces to fight this terrorism. There's no culture other than being human. Last 2 or 3 years, an imam saved 300 Christians in his mosque. Some Muslims wanted to kill those Christians, but the imam was a Muslim who was a human being. That Rivers boy that saved 14 people who were trying to drown, when he was saving them, he was not looking for a Christian or a Muslim, because there's no culture other than being human. On education, I agree with Uzor. On the day Bin Laden attacked the World Trade Center, he was very educated. And the man who took over from the Al-Qaeda was a surgeon. It goes beyond education. Are these people human beings? Some people in this world now, they feel a man can marry a man and a woman has the right to abort a child. But our illiterate grandmothers, with their own cultural education, knew that was abnormal. So it depends on the standard and who is making the standard and for what purpose the standard created. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nicholas, for talking to us.
Thank you. Let's take this comment. Good morning. Let me put it straight that when we talk of education, education does not necessarily mean being able to read and write. Education is more than that. The Bible says, train your child when he is young so that when he grows up, he will not depart from it. What does this mean? Look, it is what these people, both young and old, are being taught when they are young that they're doing. We have sex education, religious education, etc. This does not necessarily mean being able to read and write. Our Constitution is being said by some people that is written by a set of religion, gives room for all of this. On the issue of Muslim, in my opinion, I have no rejection to this. as I believe it all depends on who the president is. Let me tell you, the position of vice is just a figurehead. It is only what the head will do that matters. Presidential aspirants are now looking for a Christian politician but cannot find. When we ask our Christian brothers to join politics, pastors will say it is a dirty game. Recently, a Reverend Father, I think, was sacked because he wanted to be a governorship candidate. Imagine that, Chief Shuleye from Midiaba.
Okay, let's take one more call and move on to other issues that we have to talk about.
Hello, good
Hi,
morning.
good morning. Thank you so much for
Good morning,
calling
my
us.
sister. Good morning, Mr. Uzor. I think I'm right. My name is Honorable Lanre Jaji. Am I very audible?
Very, go on, Honorable Jaji.
God bless you, Gbenga. You see, let us be frank with ourselves. Some people are not doing what they are supposed to do. Some people are somewhere that are supposed to do something that are supposed to do. They are not doing it. I think the lackadaisical attitude of our security agencies towards curbing the insurgents might have a kind of a directive rather from the top. There is something we call boju. Some people are bojuing so that people are being killed unnecessarily, which is very unfortunate. On education, lettered people, criminalizes themselves easily. It's not education. What matters is how human beings that you are, how human that you are, how sympathetic. Even people that are not sympathetic, that are not government, must not go towards the position of authority or governance at all, because they will not be able to do what they are supposed to do. When somebody could go away with 180 something billion, and is walking free in the whole of the country and nothing is done. Money that could be used to purchase arms, money that could be used to develop our health sector. It's quite unfortunate. People are not just doing what they're supposed to do. Let me allow other people to come bring us. God bless all of you. God bless Nigeria. Thanks for having me, Honorable Lanre Jaji.
Thank you, Honorable Jaji, for talking to us.
Thank you so much. Let's take a few more comments. Good morning, Splash FM. The present political leaders have no political will to secure life and properties. Whereas the Tucano fighter jets, tactical police team, intelligence teams, nowhere is safe in the country. APC has failed Nigerians. That's from Fola. Good morning to Splash FM crew. My name is Prince Ademola Ajani from Akpakila Camp. Having listened to you attentively, I hereby prefer solutions to Nigeria's problems. 1, constitutional amendment. You will agree with me that this constitution we are using was drafted during military regime, and since then it has been reviewed, but we need to amend it fully. Restructuring. Number 2, we need serious restructuring in this country. Each state should generate its income for its development. 3, state police. That all the states have their own police system whereby governors can have full authority on police in their states. If we can put all these in place and many more, which may not be able to be cited because of our time, Nigeria will become a great country. God bless. Thank you all. Let's take this final message. Good morning. Shonola Ismail from Tekobo Idiaba. I think some people were misunderstanding that religion is quite different from individual attitudes and characters, because religion and attitude of a man are two different things. Religion is a way of worshiping and communicating with God, while attitude means a total identification of a person. However, to me, either you are Muslim, Christian, or traditionalist, what matters most is being a good person, because being a good person is one of the main reflections of being a religious person. And in addition, no one in this life can fight for God. So we don't need to classify fighting ourselves because of our religion, but we need to be friendly and accommodating to one another. On Oshun Massacre, we would like to hear from that.
Guess the person meant so.
Okay, yes. From O Massacre, we would like to hear from that Oshun Amotekun person. All right.
Okay. Well, thank you for the comments and the call so far. I see the comments or the tweets that we have so far. We'll get to them, but we have a short time to wrap up the whole conversation altogether. So please bear with us if we are not able to pick some calls or read some messages as we proceed. We should connect with the head of news and current affairs at Voice FM in Ado Ekiti. We want to talk about the Ekiti Guber election, the outcome. It was pretty surprising, some people, in terms of the person who INEC has declared the winner, the candidate of the All Progressives Congress. Fortune, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. How is Ado Ekiti this morning?
Good morning. Always a pleasure. Ado is fine. Kind of very chilly, kind of.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. I have my colleagues with me, Odera, as well as Uzor. But let's start from the outcome of the Guba election in Ekiti that happened. We covered it here. That was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken now. Was it surprising that the APC won? I'm not saying the conduct was not free and fair. I'm saying that for some reason there seems to be some sort of social media belief that Sheguni had some sort of clout to pull a shock and a surprise to also follow in the footsteps of the likes of Fayoshe and Fayemi.
You have the APC at the very top, and then you have the governor of the chairman of the governors forum as the incumbent governor, who has a structure in the state and all of that. So it might just be difficult. We know how these things play out in this country. When you have, a party at the helm, doing their thing and having the structure, it might just be difficult, especially when there is a lot of factors that are going to play out in your favor. It might be very difficult for another party to usurp, the sitting party. So I think that, for one, the APC had their game plan well put together, and it could have been very difficult for either PDP or SDP to beat them to that game. And then, the coming of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu emerging as presidential candidate and, coming down to Ekiti, with his mantra and all of that, it was a joker. It was what changed the entire game, because, well, even if at the worst, in the worst case scenario, the SDP was about to pull out a feat, the coming of Asiwaju to Ekiti was a game changer for the election, I think.
Okay.
Well, can I just come in here? I want to talk about the fact that you spoke on the issue of structure in the APC, and maybe I might tend to agree with you that the APC had structure, and that was the reason why Oyebanji was able to win the election. But what about the PDP? Could you say that the reason why the PDP weren't able to win the election was the fact that, of course, you said Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, came to Ekiti, and of course, the mega rally he was present. Well, would you say the fact that Atiku Abubakar, who wasn't present, as well as some other stakeholders in the PDP, for example, the chairman of the PDP, Iyorchia Ayu, who wasn't also present, was another reason why the PDP weren't able to win the election?
Well, you see, Ekiti, there is something very unique about Ekiti. I think they operate they do their kind of politics way differently from others. It's a small state. The people are very closely connected and all of that. In my reckoning, if the PDP had kept its house in order here in Ekiti, probably to have been a neck to neck instead of SDP coming into the picture at all. The PDP has always been a formidable force here in Ekiti, from time immemorial. But the animosity, the Godfather factor, ex-governor Ayo Fayoshe also not completely in. In my disposition, though, not completely in. Bringing in someone who might not really have any electoral value. Maybe that did the whole thing. I'm just saying, if the PDP had put its house in order, allowed a Shegoni who, out of anger, left the PDP to the SDP and then brought in a lot of followership. If the PDP had kept Shegoni as the man, because it looked like the man who could get a job done, if they had kept him in place, made sure that he won the primary and then go into the governorship election proper, maybe would have had a shocker. Maybe not completely a shocker, but something not as much as 100,000 plus kind of votes. The kind of difference we had, 187 to that number. Maybe that would have just been the difference.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the process we saw being conducted in the elections. Now, let's not deny the fact that vote buying was witnessed massively all over. There's a report from Yaga Africa Watching the Vote that specifies a few local government areas in Ijeru. I hope I got that right. Ijeru local government
Ijeru,
area. Yaga Africa observed APC agents sharing 7,000 naira per voter. In Ado-Ekiti, as shown in its report, they observed the party agents of the ruling party sharing 5,000 naira to every electorate. Also, we saw that there was a documented 41 cases of vote buying and selling in 6 LGAs. Now, the LGAs comprise Ado-Ekiti, Ijeru, Ikole, Irekodun, Ifelodun. Oh boy, I wish you were the one saying all this. And the likes. I'm sorry, I don't want to murder the names of these local government areas. But do you see this as free and fair? In as much as in the case of INEC, they were very by the book about rigging. But then you now leave the option of vote buying, which we all witnessed. There were video evidences, and then there was a particular tweet that caught my attention saying that Ekiti State is supposed to be a state that has a lot of intellectuals. That's what they're known for.
Yes.
And you have people who willingly sold their votes, their conscience for a mere 10,000 naira. How do you see this? How do you mirror APC winning with this event that has taken place?
Well, let's come to terms with our economic realities. If you say mayor, maybe you are talking for yourself. 10,000 naira is a lot of money here in Ekiti. Looking at the poverty index in Ekiti, or compared to states like Oyo, Lagos, it's crazy. It's a crazy economic atmosphere here. So 10,000 naira is going to do a lot of people some level of good. Having said that, if we talk about vote buying, I have a show I run, on Fridays with a couple of my friends. They are intellectuals and stuff, and they get to deal with a lot of people. They conduct opinion polls and all of that. And judging by the observation, the main thing they were saying, even to international observers, was, please, let us mount the pressure on these politicians not to bring money to the polling booths. Because, you see, a lot of people cannot handle the pressure that comes with money. When you see people, even when you are an advocate of change and all of that, the moment you see a colleague of yours, someone close to you, taking 15, because at some point from about 9 to 11 or 12, some of these parties, particularly one of them, was sharing as much as 15,000, and then it came down to 10, and then it came down to 7. And before the polling booth, climaxed with its activities, we had ridiculous amounts, as much as 1,800 have been shared to people who came late to vote, and they took it. So the thing for most of those guys was, don't allow politicians to bring their money. Of course, they had their surreptitious ways to get things done. They find someone very close, even in some places where people rejected the money. They still had, standby personnel, where you can, the moment you go, the moment you're done with your voting, you go there and get your money. But of course, another thing I quickly want to bring up is it looked like there's already a connection, an established level of trust between the voter and the party. Because how would I explain it out that someone who went to vote and then under strict observation and all of that still went ahead to vote for a particular party and then went behind to get money? It means that it was already decided even before they came to the polling unit. I spoke with a couple of NGOs who were against vote buying, and for 30-40 days to the election, there was massive awareness jingles on radio, on TV, on the social media. Do not sell your vote. In fact, some even broke down how much their votes, the vote of a particular person is worth. And then, people threw all of this away, not just in English. It was in different languages, in Pidgin, in Yoruba, in even the dialects. And people still, went ahead to sell their vote. It means that the pressure that this politician, and that was what I was saying earlier when I talked about strategy. these politicians knew that, yes, this is exactly what we are going to do. But the people are deliberately wired to live in a kind of way. There is no money in their pockets. These guys are trying, they are barely trying to get their heads above water. Let us bring money. It's been the case for more than 8 years here. You bring money to the polling center, you get people to vote, and then the moment people can see that, yes, if I'm given 5,000 or 10,000 naira, that is it. I mean, the next 4 years, I'm not going to see this guy. So, I mean, why should I not take the money? So it looked like the politicians already had their plans mapped out. We are going to get money into those polling centers, whatever it is, and we are going to buy votes. So at the end of the day, it's not the fault of the people. Neither is it the fault of the politician. I guess it is just a mindset thing. From everybody around, what they carry around. Why would I want to take money from a politician? And the politician is saying, why can't I buy my way into office? So it's a messed up fabric for the society.
All right, Fortune Omoshola, who is the head of news and current affairs at Voice of Feminine Ekiti. We've spoken with him about the Ekiti Gubar elections, what he saw in detail, and he's given us some perspective to that as well. We have just about 15 more minutes to wrap up the show. So let's thank you for joining us all the way from Ado Ekiti. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the day. We need to move on to other things.
All right, let's take this quick comment that just came in WhatsApp. When you have a government that treats terrorists with kid gloves, expect more unimaginable and unimaginables in religious extremism. He claimed they have a list of Nigerians sponsoring terrorism, and today nobody has been brought to book. May God have mercy. That's from Surakat Abdul Hamid Abiodun.
Okay. Any more on WhatsApp? Yeah.
No.
Okay. Let's take calls. Well, can we talk about the Electoral Act 2022 in about 4 minutes? Because we have just about 14 more to wrap up the whole show together.
What exactly do you want to talk about? I mean, recently there was a Supreme Court ruling about the Section 84 subsection, Section 84 subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. I mean, that has caused quite a
Some
number,
stir, right.
some stir in the Nigerian polity. It's quite funny that the president always preaches about democracy and how Nigeria is a democratic state,
right.
And he always tries to interfere. The executive always trying to interfere with other arms of government. I mean, the whole idea of passing something into law, enacting a law, it belongs to the what you call it now, the legislature, the legislative arm of government. So why is the president trying to interfere with that? So what I'm indeed happy about, the Electoral Act is not perfect. So
right,
it is still not perfect. There's still a lot of things that need to be done. I mean, I appreciated what Ahmad Lawan said yesterday. He was, of course, appreciating the Supreme Court for giving that ruling, and the fact that he's also saying there are certain things that need as well to be amended in the Electoral Act. But as in respect to the Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act, I'm indeed grateful for the Supreme Court for indeed making sure that there is indeed something like separation of powers in Nigeria. So kudos to them.
And probably the biggest win, which we even forgot to ask Fortune when we connected with him, was the use of the BVAS, the bimodal verification and accreditation system, which seems to just capture people. I mean, it's a deviation from what used to be the thumb printing machines, I think it was, because I voted 2019, but it's a different one now where you get captured, it verifies it's you, and then you just go on to vote and all of those. I mean, it's part of the changes we're seeing to the Electoral Act, basically 2022. Well, let's get to the lines now and your comments, because we have just about 12 more minutes to wrap it all up all together. So the numbers are 0705 050 1067, 0817 444 1067, as well as 0704 400 1067. Good morning. Thanks for calling us. Just hold on. Let's try to fix something. Just hold on. Okay, we can hear you now. Talk to us.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Elias is my name.
All right, please go on.
Sorry, on the issue of religion, this issue, I think what we need to do in Nigeria has gone beyond the issue of my pastor said or my imam said this and that. Everybody should go and know what their religion says and stop misbehaving. And should say the fact, if anybody has misbehaved in this Nigeria and says maybe it's his religion that asked him to misbehave, that person should be crucified. They should pass correct judgment on the person, and the person should be punished for that, so that we stop all these issues of Then on the issue of equity, it has become the doctrine of equity. If people don't pick somebody for 8 years, and another thing is they don't allow somebody that is ruling to bring a candidate, and that candidate, but the thing changed because of the issue that happened between the PDP party and some other things like that. So I think it is high time people start having this orientation that they should stop selling their rights. They should not forget that if I collect 5,000 naira from somebody, within 2-3 days, with the situation we find ourselves in this Nigeria, that 5,000 naira will finish. And that suffering will now begin from the day he finishes the money till another 4 years. So people should be more oriented about the issue of what will happen to them and stop selling the glory of their children. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you very much, aptly put. We appreciate you for calling.
Gbenga, it's quite interesting. He says, I understand the reason why people sell their vote. The literacy.
First said 10K is a lot of money.
Gbenga, poverty in Nigeria is endemic. The literacy level in Nigeria is also a problem. You also have something like unemployment rate is also high.
Right.
I think it is impossible. Forgive me for saying this, but I think it is impossible for you to stop vote buying in any part of Nigeria. Have you gone to the market recently? It is impossible for you to stop it.
Well, I quite disagree with
fix
that.
Fix Nigeria, make Nigeria better.
Okay.
You understand? Improve the economy of Nigeria, and you will stop vote buying. Well, no matter the what you call it now, the security agencies, people will still want to sell their votes.
Right. Okay.
So fix the economy.
Okay, let's hear from this person. Hi, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Nicholas.
You have a minute now.
It will be less. How many minutes did it take Jacob to sell his birthright to his brother? It was young porridge. But you see, it's better to be rich in Somalia than to be poor in New York. I agree with Uzor. Poverty in Nigeria is endemic. But on another note, when you can afford a withdraw of 200,000 naira, which is the amount some women need for a cesarean section, 10,000 naira will appear so mere. May God bless us. Thanks.
Thank you very much for keeping it very brief. We appreciate you in that regard. Hi. Good morning. Thanks for calling us.
Good morning, Gbenga.
What's your name?
Good morning, Uzor and Adera.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is the engineer Tayo. They calling from Kuto.
Thanks for calling us. Go on, sir.
Guys, can you imagine why a 10,000 naira, 8,000 naira is now being a big to Nigeria? Can you just imagine what the man just said now? When the poverty is now being a best friend to majority of Nigerian citizens. 8,000, 10,000. The man is not lying. Yes, if I got Osun and ETC, you will see that it is true. When you give many people 1,000, 2,000, they will embrace it as if they are giving them 1 million naira. Please, the government has to do something about it. 10,000 naira cannot go to people there and buy food, and it's now being a big money in the face of many people. This is unfortunate. Good morning.
Good morning, Engineer Adeniro. Thank you very much for talking to us. Hold on, let's hear from you.
Yes.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for calling us.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Kunle Ashimi.
Dr. Ashimi, thank you for calling us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, you see, one of the things that people need to realize, and when we talk about some of these vices like vote buying, yes, it's good to say it because there is no employment level is high, and this and that, and all of that. You are only talking about factors that made it worse, not the factors that started it. There was vote buying in some form, even in the first ever election that was held in this country. It has become a culture. Our people have this culture of entitlement, which has grown worse, especially with the youth. People just want something. Selfishness and greed. Those are the basic foundation. No matter how. Look, some of these politicians that even collect from the bigger politicians, they are comfortable. They have jobs. They have money. But they will still collect. It's a culture. And what we need is something that will go deeper than just talking about employment, which of course is very important. One of the things we have refused to make use of is to rally our religious leaders, our traditional institutions, to go to the depth of these people, cultural evaluation, bring back the values. Those are the issues. Things like unemployment and all those stuff, economic activity only made these things worse. There has always been vote buying in this country, but those that could help us to address these issues are rather busy doing something else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kula Ashimi, for talking to us. You wanted to say something? Can you do it in a minute?
The last caller before Dr. Ashimi mentioned, the government coming to assistance, in order to removing vote buying. But recall, Gbenga, in 2015, the incumbent government gave out 20 billion naira to agents around Nigeria. Do you think a government like that will be interested, and even the incoming government will be interested in stopping vote buy? I don't think so.
Okay, let's not disenfranchise those on Twitter in some way as well as Facebook. Let's read a few tweets that we can lay our hands on.
Okay, on Facebook, Lucky Shinerger Eversion. Good morning, Splash FM. A graduate is paid 30K and a repentant terrorist is paid 70K. Mr. President knows the sponsor of terrorists. And I'm pretty sure the same group of terrorists will come after him once he is out of power. Law of karma still exists. And to the chief of army staff that embezzled funds for security, the same... Oh, wow. I'm really sorry that I cannot read that comment. From Dorn Skipo Hernandez says, good morning, House. How is... okay. My view about your topic is now that we have tried Muslim to Christian, but it is F9. We have to try Christian to Muslim. We have tried Christian to Muslim. It's F9. Let's try the third party. Maybe everything will be fine. Babalawo to Babalawo. What we need is good governance, not ethnicity or tribalism.
I get his point, though.
Okay.
I get his point.
All right.
Okay.
On Twitter.
On Twitter, a lot of them. I'll start with some of the recent ones. Akorede Camille says, God bless Uzor for his submissions this morning. I'm a Muslim and I make bold to say that extremism is rampant in the north because of the hate sermons coming from the religious leaders in that region. Uguri Kelvin says also, okay, on insecurity, the state government must fully support Amotekwa and recruit more men into the squad for better manpower and coverage. All entry routes into the state or zone must be manned every 24 hours. Communication devices and alert security numbers must be spread to the public. Olusegun Michael Bassonjo says some people are educated just to believe what they want to believe. So I think it is an issue of poor education and indoctrination. These are people who have been negatively indoctrinated and whose readiness to die for the cause they believe in remains unshaken. Ugri Kelvin on Electoral Act, the 2022 Electoral Acts is a milestone for our democracy. It will sanitize our polluted political landscape and reduce election manipulations. It will instill transparency in our electoral processes. Citizens must insist on electronic voting and transmission of results. Akorede Camille also says, again, ironically, that's not what the religion itself teaches, but that's what you get when some leaders think they can practice Islam more than the Prophet himself. And finally, it's high time, that's Akorede Camille again, it's high time the political leaders and elites started punishing individuals found with the element of extremism in the country. Enough of unnecessary empathy for human killers. Okay, well, I think that's a bit this morning. Lade Mike on Facebook has sent a message. He says, you don't expect a poor family man to reject money before voting because the kind of poverty we are facing in Nigeria is too much. Well, that's it. We're done for Roundtable. The 2 days. Hope you enjoyed every beat of it. I enjoyed being here.
I did too.
Every person that has been here as well. Uzor, Adera today, as well as Lola and Miriam yesterday. Join the Yoruba presenters later this evening by 5 p.m. They would have also another star cast to talk about the events that have happened all through till the end of June 2022. Gentleman and lady, we have to go.
Pleasure being here. Let's do it again at the end of the year.
That's right. So join us at the end of the year. There.
All right, it's time to go. I am Odera Otaru. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye for now. I am Gbenga Fayehun.